this video, we will be talking about microfilaments, intermediate filaments, and microtubules. We will talk about its function as well as why these structures are important. Before we begin, let's discuss what these three structures all have in common. These are all protein fibers within the cytoplasm that help support cell structure, cell and organelle movement, as well as cell division. So together, these three types of protein fibers help make up the cytoskeleton of the cell. Now that we have this big picture in mind, let's dive in and talk about each one of these protein fibers specifically. First, let's discuss the microfilaments. And so as you can see here in this diagram over here, I have microtubules, actin filaments, which we'll call microfilaments, as well as intermediate filaments. This image will be shown in all of the slides, and so it's good to refer back to this one. Now, let's continue talking about microfilaments. So why do we care about the structure, and how is it important? Well, microfilaments are the smallest out of the three structures that we mentioned, and it's made of linked monomers of a protein called actin. So you can see it right over here. As you can see, right here shows the actin. So test questions might ask you which one of these three molecules are the smallest, and your answer would be microfilaments. I've often seen that as a test question. And as you can see here, it kind of looks like a double helix. It is combined in a structure that looks like a double helix. And then in terms of its function, microfilaments are involved in muscle contraction as well as cytokinesis. So we won't talk about the detailed steps of muscle contraction in this video, but for now I think it's sufficient to understand that the actin filaments serve as tracks for the movement of a motor protein called myosin. You can see that over here. The actin is the little yellow thing, and myosin is over here. Now let's talk a little bit about cytokinesis. Let's remember that cytokinesis is the last stage of cell division. So as you can see over here, we have an image of cytokinesis, and then microfilaments help with cytokinesis, aka pinching off the last step to make two cells. Another cool thing about actin filaments, or microfilaments, is they also help form microvilli, as shown here. And remember that we have lots of microvilli in our digestive system to help us absorb nutrients. Additionally, actin filaments help play a structural role in cells, and they help give the cell its shape and structure. Lastly, one important thing is that actin can grow and disassemble quickly, which is important for cell movement. While these filaments have a few more functions, I think these are the main ones that you should focus on. Now, let's discuss intermediate filaments. So these are bigger than microfilaments, but smaller than microtubules. And the name makes sense because it's intermediate. You can see them here on the diagram. We have an intermediate filament over here. The main function of intermediate filaments is to help the cell maintain its structure. Intermediate filaments can be made up of a wide variety of proteins such as vimentin, desmin, keratin, lamins, glial, fibrillary acidic protein, as well as neurofilaments. So the one that you may recognize there is keratin, and keratin stands out because it's found in the hair, skin, and nails. Furthermore, intermediate filaments in adjacent cells can connect, and when they connect, the cells are held together via desmosomes. So as you can see over here, there are intermediate filaments, and then they connect via desmosomes to kind of hold the cell together. Lastly, intermediate filaments can also be used as tumor markers for certain cancers. Let's remember that neurofilaments can make up an intermediate filament, and neurofilaments, if they are detected, can be used to detect neuroblastomas. Lastly, let's discuss the biggest protein fibers, microtubules. So microtubules are made up of tubulin proteins arranged to form a hollow, kind of straw-like structure. And each tubulin protein has an alpha tubulin and a beta tubulin. Microtubules have lots of functions, such as providing tracks for motor proteins called kinesins and dyneins. And these are transport proteins that kind of help transport vesicles and other things inside the cell. Test questions love to ask you about this, so I'd pay attention to this. The dynein transports protein from positive to negative, which is called retrograde transport, whereas kinesin transports it from the negative end to the positive end, which is called anterograde transport. So as you can see here in this cell, we have the negative end here, and these purple things are microtubules, and the positive end is more distal or further away from this green thing called the centromere. And so the negative end is closer to here, the positive end is further out, and so dynein is the protein that transports it from positive over here to negative, and then kinesin is a protein that transports it from negative to positive. A little trick I like to use to remember this is that I remember K for kinesin, and K is the abbreviation for potassium. Potassium is positive, so it transports it to the positive end. Another interesting thing about microtubules is that the bacteria that causes tetanus, herpes simplex virus, poliovirus, and rabies virus, these all use dynein to help it go retrograde to the neuron cell body. Also, another thing is that microtubules play a role in cell division, in which they make the spindle which helps pull the chromosomes apart. And then lastly, microtubules help form various structures such as flagella, cilia, the mitotic spindle, and centrioles. We won't get into the specifics of each structure, but let's remember that flagella are commonly seen in sperm, cilia can help move materials across the surface, such as in your respiratory system, centrioles, which are shown here, helps the cell divide, and then in contrast to microfilaments, which are the small guys, microtubules grow very slowly and collapse very quickly. Something that's pretty interesting is that there are drugs that act on microtubules, such as mebendazole, which treats parasitic infections, griseofulvin, which treats fungal infections, colchicine, which treats gout, and then vincristine and paclitaxel, which treat cancers. Now, let's sum up the important facts about this video. So microfilaments are the smallest, and they're made up of actin, and they help with cytokinesis and muscle contraction, and it helps the cell give its shape and structure. It grows and disassembles quickly and is important for cell movement. Intermediate filaments are in the middle when it comes to size. They are bigger than microfilaments but smaller than microtubules, and they mostly help with maintaining cell structure, and they play a role in holding cells together via desmosomes. Lastly, microtubules are the largest and made up of alpha and beta tubulin. It helps provide tracks for motor proteins and helps form structures like flagella, cilia, and centrioles. The most heavily tested topic that I've seen with microtubules is the dynein and kinesin and what direction they transport, so try to remember that if you can. Thank you for watching this video. If you got this far, please give this video a like. Comment below with questions or if you want us to make a video on a different topic. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a future video.